At the time, I was working for Esquire, and I had watched my journalistic reputation go under we'll just call it a renovation. When I was at GQ, I had won 2 National Magazine Awards. I had, really was sort of at the top of my game, and I came to Esquire, and I wrote a story about the actor Kevin Spacey, and basically, I think I used a lot of coy rhetoric to do it, but basically, I outed him, and it was a amazingly unpopular story. It was in the sort of pre-social media days. It got. I can't even imagine what would happen to it with that story now. It just got completely taken apart, and I suffered a crisis of confidence afterwards because I felt, I felt untrustworthy, and I felt, very, very. I was wary about myself when I was going to interview people, and I'd sort of lost that sort of thing that you really need to have as a journalist, which is the belief that you are worthy of these people's trust who share their stories with you, and so I meet this, and so we're going to do this issue on American heroes, and somebody at the magazine thought it would be like a really kind of amusing idea to have like this bad boy journalist go and interview the nicest man in the world. So it was an assignment. I would never have done that story. And so I called, I got a number for Fred, and I called him up, and I was like, Fred, I'd like to interview you. And he says, I said, well, when can I do it? And he said, well, where are you right now? And I said, I'm on 55th Street. And he goes, well, I'm on 56th. So I walked around the corner, and I knocked on his apartment door, and this man, and that's what he said on the phone. He goes, I have to tell you, I'm in my bathrobe, but, and I walk, over there, and there's Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, he answers the door in his bathrobe, and then, 2 things happened like right off the bat. Number one, I asked him a question that he completely ignored and just started asking me his own questions. And then while I was sitting there trying to and he asked me that there's this question about the stuffed animals that might have been important to me when I was a kid. And I was like, I'm trying to deal with this whole thing, and then while I'm trying to mull this existential question over, he walks up with a camera and takes a picture with this in his dark apartment as the flash comes on, and he calls up his wife and said, Joanne, I have this nice young man over here, and I just took a picture, and I'm going to send it to you. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And that was what it was. He kept me off balance. I went and saw him 3 times for pretty long spans of time when in preparation for doing that story, and he never answered a single question that I asked him. It was the funniest thing. He would just, well, I've thought about that, Tom. What do you think about it? And he just kept me off balance. But the thing that he gave me was trust. And I think that he was that person. He had that amazing. I think when I spoke to you, I think I might have called it his superpower. He had this amazing ability to look into people and see past the adult facade that we present, and take a really direct look at the, aching kid that's within all of us, and to decide what that kid needed. And he decided what I needed was trust. And he had, there were people, and I know this in retrospect, but there were people who worked for him who just thought he was crazy. They were like, do you know who that guy is? Do do you see what he just did with Kevin Spacey? He's a rogue, and yet he completely hung in there with me, and I hung in there with him, and we became friends.